This is a video that I'm happy to be able to get to make. We're getting locked in Sean O'Malley for UFC 316. Ahead of this fight, we've seen other fighters in locked in variations like locked in Kamaru Usman or locked in Conor McGregor, locked in Oliveira, the list goes on. Whenever a fighter is focused on nothing but fighting, we usually see the best performances out of them. So it really has me thinking whether or not it will be different this time. And I know that I have a photo there of retro O'Malley from whenever he was a kid, but he for certainly wasn't more locked in at this point than he was now. It's like he wasn't subject to vice as a kid. That's probably whenever it was the strongest in him. It's just he didn't have the massive following. So Suga as a persona was less of a detriment to his career at this point of it than whenever he started dyeing his hair and had a lot more tattoos. I'm hoping at the bare minimum that we get back to at least this level of focus and directedness towards the title. But it'll be interesting to call because he's made a lot of money, so that hunger that exists in fighters who haven't gotten rich and want to get rich through MMA will never return to him because he's been champion and he's made a bunch of bread fighting in the UFC. I still pose the question of will things be different this time? Because while all of this change in O'Malley's life is being reported, I know Merab is somewhere snickering quietly, just thinking, you think not smoking dope or jacking off is gonna help you? And he's just laughing. I know it's just like this. The old Sean walk-off KO'd Aljamain Sterling and then got high immediately afterwards, and he posted on his Snapchat, influencers who use this platform, Snapchat, they make a lot of money. All the people in entertainment who talk about the type of numbers that they turn over on Snapchat and what this viewership does for them monetarily, it's an impressive number. So Sean O'Malley was definitely making a lot of money all throughout his title reign just with Snapchat alone. And he was making his own posts off of his own personal phone. And I followed him on Snapchat too. I had a group chat on there. And I've definitely noticed the fact that the content is a lot less personal. He would have like the Snapchat leave a response thing, and people would leave him messages, and all throughout the day he would be responding to people, directly addressing him and asking him questions. There was a lot of fan interaction going on, and there was a lot of glaze happening in one direction towards O'Malley, and I'm sure that that built up his ego and also placed a lot of expectations on his performances, since there's gonna be a kid on Snapchat who's like, yo, my mom has cancer and I'm kind of feeling like I also might have cancer too. I'm gonna go get screened and I really need you to win this fight because you're the only thing that I believe in anymore. And to be fair, I would get off of social media too if people were just casually impressing their hopes for a better world onto me and I'm just a guy who fights. That's what that superstardom will do though. I get the reason why he abandoned social media, because he was really deep in the weeds. Another thing that he was getting dragged for in the media was the fact that he and his wife share an open relationship. They also have a daughter together. I think the arrangement that he has worked out with her is that he gets to sleep around and she doesn't, which, depending on who you ask, makes him a Chad, but I feel like in general, fan reception is better geared towards fighters who are family men. If Rocky just had a bunch of hoes on the side, it would be less of an impactful story. There was just Adrian, that was the mother of his children, and he loved her and shared his victories with that one girl. Sean O'Malley was out here texting the Haktua girl in October. There's an excerpt from an interview in the bottom right corner where he was talking about, if I get a little puss on the side, what does that have to do with anything? I have testosterone running through my veins. It's that fucking simple. I wouldn't say that if I was in the opposite position. If I wasn't paying for everything, if I wasn't successful. If I was an average Joe, it probably wouldn't be fair. But I feel like I'm fucking King Kong. And that's kind of it. I'm telling you, that Bryce Mitchell quote, I keep on going back to it. Bryce Mitchell said in his post-fight interview with DC after he knocked out Kron Gracie, he was saying, man, I've been at the highest of highs as far as emotions after fights go and the lowest of lows. Now I just want to stay right in the middle. I feel like Sean O'Malley being on this superstardom run and never being able to fail, it seemed like, in the octagon, and being able to dribble and shoot invisible basketballs made him approach the world in a certain way. And it was even apparent towards other fighters like Cody Garbrandt, who, it's low-hanging fruit. It's Cody Garbrandt in 2023 and you're really trying to have a feud with him and face off with that guy. That beef was never going to produce a fight. Sean O'Malley was just picking on a guy that he knew that he was actually better at fighting than. He's not tough for that. The Cody Garbrandt beef was just spawned purely out of ego. If Sean O'Malley was locked in the way that he was now, Cody Garbrandt could have talked because he would have known that their careers were on two different paths. Sean O'Malley was also smoking lots of za in the past, and he's given that up as a new lifestyle change moving into 316. He had a King Palm sponsorship, which is like a tobacco-less leaf wrap. It's like a hemp paper. You roll weed inside of it. And he was always smoking these and posting these funny little bits where he was getting high and punching mitts with Tim Welsh on the back of a moped. And he's also smoking a King Palm. And they're faded and it's funny. But I could see how this type of comedy would be annoying to someone who doesn't smoke marijuana. Because literally the entire joke is that he's smoking weed while training in MMA, and that the two things seem kind of oxymoronical. Also, during this period, whenever he was living the way that he couldn't not stutter to save his life. In these interviews, he couldn't clearly focus his thoughts into syntactically functional sentences. In interviews, in post-fights, in media days, he always looked like he was just high as fuck in class, trying not to get caught up by the teacher whenever he would answer questions from the media. Him gaming in Warzone and in Call of Duty Black Ops 6 was the largest evidence that I had that his brain was cooked. I think that O'Malley even played COD competitively whenever they added League Play to Black Ops 6. I'm not gonna hate on anyone for playing video games, dude. I'm a Fortnite gamer, but I personally feel like Call of Duty is the worst way to spend your time. If you're on that game and you're putting in those hours like he was, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? I mean, that is for free. Sean O'Malley was streaming and making money this whole time. But sitting in front of that PC and playing games for any amount of time is never going to be conducive to developing the wrestling defense that he needs to win against the greatest bantamweight of all time. Merab Dvalishvili is probably the greatest bantamweight of all time on a skill level perspective, and for the fact that if you match him against any other previous bantamweight, he likely wins that fight. Except for prime TJ Dillashaw, we have to remember. I think that it's a good thing that Sean O'Malley has given up the gaming as like a huge facet of his online presence, because it's very time consuming and you can get lost in it very fast. I feel like this upcoming fight is going to be an experiment to see if sobriety is a viable base for MMA. We already know that heavy alcoholism and cocaine usage is a pretty strong base for MMA, but what about the 12 steps? The news, Sean, has been made by Merab Dvalishvili. No matter whether he wins or loses, if he's able to maintain the lifestyle changes that he's implemented into this training camp, or the last however many months it's been since he's got off of social media, he owes Merab a thank you. For not even on some like hating stuff towards Sean O'Malley or just like trying to be like triggering or anything like that. He really owes something to Merab, maybe a thank you for the fact that he helped him improve his life in a positive way. Sean O'Malley has gotten so much more aura for the fact that he hasn't gone online since he lost to Merab. The last thing that I want to see as a fan of O'Malley going into this fight is for him to do some silly comedy sketch where he's smoking weed and he's hitting that realistic human torso punching bag. He probably isn't doing it because he knows it's going to piss people off and that these gimmicks look really dumb whenever he's not winning. In UFC Embedded, there's a clip of him talking about how he is spending more time with his family, and he's taking notes from other champions before him who focused on important things that actualized their soul in moments of defeat. Dustin Poirier was talking about how hard he took the Islam Makhachev loss, and how there were some nights where he just had to get up and just leave his house because he just couldn't be there anymore. To get him through it, he just talks about how his family was there for him, and how he always could lean on the people who loved him and actually cared about him and were there for him before he was the diamond in the octagon. Snapchat probably pays like a gross sum of money, but he's starting to see the value in family, and it seems like he's starting to show gratitude for the things that are working for him in his life. A part of the appeal of Sean O'Malley to young fans, and the reason why he's disliked by older viewers, is because of the way that he doesn't take this position seriously. Even as champion, he kind of treated the belt as an accessory, and it was refreshing to enjoy a champion who didn't change his lifestyle because of fighting for belts, and he still chased finishes, and he was smoking weed, and it was kind of fun and whimsical whenever it was working. Sean O'Malley completely spit in the face of the GSP archetype of champion, or the Khabib archetype of champion. This Sugar persona, if the UFC wanted to promote Sean O'Malley to a very high degree, it could have become larger than the UFC itself, and it probably would have, granted he did win the first fight against Merab. It still has the opportunity to get much larger if he keeps playing into it. But I feel like in the first Merab fight, the brand that Sean O'Malley had become so close to with this Sugar thing that he had going on, it became a lie because he knew that Sugar would never be able to get this job done, even though he felt like people were all counting on him to do it. Like I said with the Snapchat stuff, I would see some messages where they would be like, "You give me hope. Thank you, champion." And it's like, wow. Now I'm carrying the dreams and aspirations of some random guy whose face I will never see. And that's probably a lot of pressure whenever you're getting high and thinking about it. And that's what he talked about. He was like, I've never considered myself an unhappy person, but with all the things that I do have going for me in my life, I felt like I could be happier. And weed was giving me this experience of anxiety where I wasn't even feeling anxious about anything. And I was thinking about things that didn't matter in moments where I should be internally quiet and he would be on his phone whenever he was in traffic driving, and he owns two supercars, like a Ferrari and a Lamborghini, and he's operating these vehicles, and he's on Instagram, and he's doom scrolling. And it's shit we all do, but I mean, if you're gonna be a champion, you can't be like everyone else. So there's no way that he was able to be as actively engaged with the internet as he was, and also prepare for this fight adequately in the build-up and in his training camp. There's no way to be a champion in this sport and to not have your lifestyle change in one way or another. And most certainly, if you want to keep the belt, it's very important to make positive changes in your life and live like a champion does. I said before that it was refreshing to see him completely reject all the norms of the typical champion, but it's also refreshing now to see him try to get his career back on track by embodying these norms and becoming more grounded in the human experience and not like this alien who we can't relate to. And this is a family man, and he loves his family. He's also doing visualization training like Henry Cejudo did in the past, where he's simulating the octagon experience and playing crowd noises really loud, and having his corner treat these sparring rounds in a 5-minute round spar like the actual fight, and it's against an opponent with a similar style as Merab. They had footage of the whole thing, and it was actually pretty interesting to watch. I think that Sean O'Malley is trying to win this fight in his head. It's important for Sean O'Malley to not get canceled out mentally in this fight, especially whenever his offense doesn't work, or if he gets countered with the grappling, or if he spends a little bit too much time on the ground, or more time than he hoped to spend down there. He can't get flustered, and he has to stay poised. So this type of training is good. I think that Tim Welsh is good for him as far as like being a security blanket for him whenever things get scary. Tim Welsh also has a Snapchat. I still follow him, but I haven't been on Snapchat in a long time. I wonder if he's still smoking weed. And one thing to note about Merab, through all the different things that Sean O'Malley is showing up to make himself a better fighter, Merab is definitely super locked in. But, like, he's not that locked in, you know? You'll still see clips of him out on the town, like, going to nightclubs and stuff. And he's always with this Francia James woman. And she's an OnlyFans creator. He did this one skit where he flashed a full frontal to this Francity woman. And it was just the UFC belt. But the intimation was that he was showing her his cock. And yeah, the sketches, dude. This was a sketch, and he's always doing sketches. We roast Sean O'Malley for doing more sketches than he trains. But Merab is a very good fighter, and we give him passes to make as many sketches as he wants. And he has like 50 of them on the internet and on his Instagram that you can just go and watch right now. And they're so unfunny to me, and they make my eyes roll involuntarily. But one thing that I will note is that he never has glossy eyes in any of these videos. Like, he just got faded. So I feel like that helps him get taken more seriously in general. Because, like, real quick, like, look at the way that Sean O'Malley is pictured at the bottom of the screen right there. On the left side, that's the most recent media day from just hours ago. And he looked very poised and sharp. And it looked like he was very relaxed in this media session. Before, he's clutching the mic really tight. It seems like every single time that he was talking in the past, that he was just praying to God that nobody knew he was high. And he would shrink himself and try to just bystand in situations whenever he needs to be a person who's more vocal. As a contender or even as champion in the first Merab fight, his psyche seems a lot less damaged, even than it had been before losing to Merab. And I'm thinking that this is attributable to the new lifestyle changes that he has made. Merab, he's always pressing civilians and fans at events. An armchair psychologist would diagnose him as being so hot-blooded as an insecure response. And these wise guys would possibly think that the fact that he does lash out at people in public would have some type of effect on his fighting. But it does not. And that's just because at his core, Merab is of a very good mindset and a strong will. In every one of his press conferences, he always goes on this long tangent about how hard he works and what hard work means to him, and how proud of this quality that exists in him he is. And how in order to be able to output as much hard work as he does on a daily basis, it took years of enduring difficult situations to develop this quality. Merab really had nothing in his life whenever he found fighting in Georgia, and he left this country because even though he had found fighting as an outlet to potentially make a life for himself, there wasn't really a regional circuit whenever he started competing out in Georgia. So I talked about this in another video that I made called Blue Collar Work is the Best Base for MMA. I talked about how Merab Dvalishvili immediately came to America and started working in construction to make ends meet, and he ended up doing pretty well for himself because of just how hard he worked and how many jobs he was picking up. And this work ethic was spawned out of the realization that people needed him back in Georgia, and that he needed to make a good life for himself here, and that he'd only have one shot to do it. Being so far from home is a different level of pressure than Sean O'Malley had. His backstory is he had a Nissan Altima, and he worked a summer job. It was 40 hours a week. He saved up a couple of $1,000s, and he paid off the Altima car payment, and he moved from Montana to Arizona. And he always had the opportunity to move back to his parents' house. He always was with their support. He could have just gone home if none of this worked out. Merab Dvalishvili did not have that outlet. It was him or his entire bloodline died. Merab's situation being so need-based then makes him Merab's situation being need-based gives him an edge over fighters who could imagine a life outside of fighting, like live streaming. Sean O'Malley doesn't really need any of this. If we're talking about, oh yeah, like I'm actually going to be destitute if I don't fight. Suga is a brand, and that was the problem, and that's the reason why he's kind of walked away from it for a little bit. Merab is the type of guy to ask Dana White to give him less money just so he doesn't lose that competitive fire. He'll be like, honestly, you can keep this, and he'll just give him like, he'll give him a couple $100,000 off of his check, just so he still has something to be pissed off about and to work towards. And if he is just freaking balling, I don't know how he's still able to stay so locked in towards his goals, with the fact that he is the fat cat now at this division. And it's really getting hard to say that anyone has or will ever be better than him, especially if he wins this rematch. But now we'll discuss Sean's victory. Sean winning this fight would indicate that he doesn't care about belts as much as martial arts. And this is very important, because with the state of bantamweight right now, none of those guys are actually fights except for Merab. And whenever you're fighting Merab, if you're used to the speed and ability of the top 5 contenders, and then you get into a fight with Merab thinking that it's going to be the same thing as even him and the number 1 contender, you're way in over your head. So it's not even the bantamweight title, it's the Merab belt. So that's what they're fighting for. If he's able to put a Chris Mutino level beating on Merab, because he was able to set up sequences to do this throughout 25 minutes, like I've predicted, maybe not a Mutino level beating, but I want to see him dominate 5 rounds or a majority of 5 rounds in this comeback fight to win, going into the trilogy, because they will need to do a trilogy if this guy doesn't get knocked out. Even if Merab does get knocked out, man, they should probably do the trilogy. This is going to be one of the best comeback stories in the UFC that there's ever been, because in the past there were only 2 two-time champs in the bantamweight division. That's going to be Dominic Cruz and TJ Dillashaw, and that's the only time that this has ever happened in the promotion's history. And this is like Wilt Chamberlain and all of those guys from the 80s back in the day, able to get like these crazy stats and stuff. It's so hard to do anything record-breaking in MMA now, just because of how good everyone is. So whenever these feats are accomplished, they are notable, no matter who pulls them off or how we feel about it. Modern MMA is so freaking competitive, and it is so hard to accomplish anything in this sport with how bad everyone wants to be successful, and how much everyone just knows about fighting, and how skilled everyone is. This fight will be a display of grit on the part of Sean O'Malley that none of us think that he has. I want it to be asserted in our minds that Sean O'Malley is a very aggressive striker, and that he knocks people out and he chases finishes. I want us to acknowledge that Locked In O'Malley is a mythical fighter. We'd never per se made his hands slow, but hopefully we see even faster hands and better combinations and shot selection out of Sean O'Malley. I know I'm taking the road less traveled by and selecting Sean O'Malley to win this fight, but I would always pick him to win this fight just because of the chance that he may knock out Merab on any given occasion. I'm even more down to support him now that I know that he's trying to become a better man for his family. And he's giving up the things in the past that he's built a name and brand out of, just so that he can spend more time with the people and the things that are important to him. I think this is the mark of true maturity, and I hope that he gets rewarded for this. So if you guys made it to this point in the video, please do like, comment, and subscribe. I will catch you fellas in the next upload.